I hope you're all prepared to hear a white retro gaming nerd on YouTube describe what Pac-Man is for the millionth time. It's going to be full of revelations that anyone with even a passing interest in video games will have definitely heard before. The 1980s Pac-Man, designed by Toru Iwatani, is a timeless video game that excels in its simplicity. In the game, you guide Pac-Man around a maze in 4 directions in an attempt to eat all of the pellets. Once every pellet has been eaten, then you progress to the next stage. This is simple enough, but there are a few variables that keep it endlessly engaging. First up are the 4 ghosts that chase Pac-Man around the maze and can defeat him when they make contact. This can be countered with the use of 4 power pellets that allow Pac-Man to eat the ghosts for a limited amount of time that gets shorter from stage to stage. Skilled players will attempt to eat all 4 ghosts with a single power pellet, as their point bonus will double with each consecutive ghost eaten. This is a great way to score big in Pac-Man, which is something you'll definitely want to do because every 10,000 points you are rewarded an extra life. There are also fruit collectibles that randomly appear from time to time in the centre of the maze, and these also grant substantial point bonuses. All these additional elements add a layer of complexity to the experience that is easy enough to learn as you play, but it will keep you coming back for more. Pac-Man's easy to pick up nature makes it an ideal fit for handheld ports, and in 1991 the game was brought to the Game Gear in North America and Japan. This port follows a very similar version that was released for the Game Boy the previous year, and despite the addition of colour, it is largely similar to its Game Boy counterpart. Game Gear Pac-Man can be played as a single-player experience or a 2-player variant where competing players try to beat 4 stages in the fastest time possible. The standard gameplay experience manages to frame the entire width of the maze on screen at any time, but requires additional vertical scrolling to see everything. This is a marked improvement over the Game Boy version, which also had additional horizontal scrolling as well as vertical. Now, the addition of scrolling might not seem like a big issue, but not being able to see the entire maze does spoil the experience somewhat. Being able to see the entire maze allows you to plan your movements and see what all the ghosts are doing at any time. It adds some strategy to the experience that is sadly lost with the addition of scrolling, because you can't see what the ghosts are up to and what pellets are left to be eaten. It doesn't ruin the game, but it certainly makes it more difficult, and it's not really the ideal way to play Pac-Man unless you really want to see its minimalist visuals in their full fidelity. Thankfully, there is a way to play the game with the entire maze on screen. Press right on the title screen and a little half icon will appear next to your selection. With this active, the entire game is redrawn with smaller artwork, which completely eliminates the need to scroll. This is my preferred way to play, as I can see everything all at once and work out exactly where I need to be at any point, and when best to flee from the ghosts or eat them. It's pretty much the arcade experience in your hands, which was an extremely attractive prospect even in 1991. The only handheld ports of Pac-Man prior to this and the Game Boy version were LCD and VFD games that were far more simplistic in what they could achieve, and often didn't feature an accurate recreation of the arcade game's maze design. Game Gear Pac-Man is very much the real deal, and you can take it anywhere, and while it would have been nice to have a little bit more than just a portable arcade port, you have to look at this in context. In fact, it wouldn't be for another 8 years until the Game Boy Color came along that Namco would re-release a handheld Pac-Man with more content than just the arcade game. Pac-Man Spectral Color Edition offered up a colorized port of the original Game Boy Pac-Man alongside a new port of the puzzle game Pac-Attack. Game Gear Pac-Man definitely doesn't do much by today's standards, especially when we can get entire compilations of Pac-Man games on handhelds these days, but for 1991 this was a great version of the arcade classic that you could take anywhere. Well, as long as you had a Game Gear and 6 AA batteries. It may have been portable, but that thing was still an absolute unit.